Hi everyone, Ryan here. Now before the intro, I just want to let you guys know what's covered in this episode, okay guys? I'll be going through the property strategy that I'm spending 10% of my time on right now in May 2019, which is joint ventures, okay guys? Joint ventures. In this episode, I share exactly what I'm doing with joint ventures, how they're working for me, how you can do the same, and why they're so important to my business right now, and why I'm spending 10% of my time on joint ventures. The biggest question every entrepreneur, landlord, and guru wants to know is this: how are landlords and entrepreneurs like us increasing our rent up to £42,155 a year above the market rent from a single property? Now that replaces the average salary, whether we're the owner of the property or we're just the tenant. You're listening to Ryan OTTO, and this podcast will give you all the answers. Welcome to the Perfect Property Deal. Hi everyone, Ryan OTTO here. So this is the third part in the series of the 5-part series in total, or the 5 strategies that I've been sharing with you guys over the last few episodes of this podcast, where I go or I deep dive or go deep inside the 5 main strategies that I'm using right now in May 2019 in my business to drive my company or companies forward and to increase our profits for the time of year that we are in right now, guys, okay? So this particular strategy I'm sharing with you on this episode is joint ventures, okay, guys? Now, I'm probably spending no more than 10% of my time focusing on finding, putting together, and managing the relationships and the deals and the deal flow and the qualifying and the questions and, the mentoring with my joint venture partners. Okay, guys? Now, this investment strategy or this property strategy that generates revenue for my company and can do the same for yours as well, it doesn't really take that much money, but it does take time. Okay, guys? So right now I've got it down to a point or a position where I'm spending around about 10% of my time maintaining those relationships with the 5 main joint venture partners I've got and I'm working with right now. At the start, it takes a bit more time, more than 10% of my time, to find them and to put everything else together and to get them to a position where the joint venture has been entered into and the company formed, etc. And then you can get to the point where we are right now, or where I am with my holding company. This is the 10% I spend is managing and maintaining those relationships, looking at deals together and making decisions together to drive that joint venture forward. Ultimately, the goal is to make profit or make a profit in that new entity, that business. Okay, guys? So right now I have 5 joint venture partners that I've, started working with recently. That's this year. Some of those relationships have been ongoing way before then. Some are actually new relationships. 2 of them are new relationships that have been formed in this particular year, 2019. The rest were, prior this year. Okay, guys? So let me give you an example of the joint ventures that we're doing right now, or these ones that I can share with you. I'm not going to share their names because for personal reasons and, other things, and I'm not going to share the names, and some of them, we sign confidentiality agreements and things like that. So discretion is important, okay? So let's just say the first joint venture partner is called S. I know S very, very well. In fact, she actually worked for me a long time ago, and then she went off and done her own thing, worked for another company, property related. We stayed in contact, and she always had the bug of, wanted to get involved and being around all the things that we did. And, she was well submersed in the things that were going on and the conversations and the meetings and everything else. And it inspired her to, want to get into this scene. Okay, guys? So anyway, S went away and then came back recently and said, I've decided I want to change my life. I want to do these different things, and I'm sick of working like a 9 to 5 and in the rat race, and I want to start my property journey and get going. I've come to you for your help, okay? So that was great, and I was, flattered and honored by that. All I simply did was put a training package together, which I had a training program. I'm talking about serviced accommodation at the moment, okay, guys? So this is a serviced accommodation joint venture. I think you guys refer to it now as to rent service accommodation. But, when I got started back in this particular strategy, it was in the year 2000 in property. This particular strategy I started to use around about 2004, 2005 with my company called Guaranteed Rent, okay, which was exactly the same, controlling properties from landlords that you don't own. And then we would just use the most profitable strategy to maximize the rent and generate the most amount of income possible using arbitrage, which we used to back then re-let the properties to local housing authority or the army bases, Mildenhall, Lakenheath, RAF, all in that part of the country. And it worked really well. Had great success from 2004, 2005, and that strategy's evolved over the years to now, okay? So S went on my latest training program, which I gave to S. Now, that got S completely up to speed and in a position where she knows how to find deals, knows how to close deals, knows how to put the deals together, manage the deals, and run the service accommodation business, okay? So I was confident after seeing or knowing S for a very long time, knowing how they perform, knowing their attitude. I actually said to S, if you go away, get this amount of money together, not to give to me, to put the deposit in, the first month's rent and the deposit, etc., and cover the costs and furniture and everything else. When you get this amount of money, then come back to me and I will give you everything that you need. As long as you're prepared to, put the work in, basically, then I can help you get your first deal, your first of many deals, and then the momentum just starts there. Okay, guys? So anyway, S went away. She raised the money. She came back quicker than I expected with the money and said, here's the money. Now I'm ready to go. So I gave S my training program, which is called the Perfect Property Deal. She went through that. She engrossed herself in that. She got completely up to speed in that. And then she came back with lots of questions and we worked together and I said, right, now you've done that, I'm ready to enter into a joint venture with you, okay? So we entered into a joint venture agreement. Now, I won't bore you with the details of that, but it's a very good profit share where we put half the money in, etc., etc. We share half the profits and we're building a portfolio now with S. So 2 weeks later, after S has gone through that training and then asked lots of questions over the next couple of weeks and she started looking, S has found her first property deal, okay? So the deal that we have is S finds the deal, books the appointment, does the initial due diligence, etc., etc. Then I would call the landlord, close the deal on the phone, send S to go and view the property to do the internal inspection. It's the way that we structure things. So it completely takes away S being put in a corner at an early stage and not having the answers to the landlord's questions, which might spook the landlord and lose the deal that would have been a deal closed if I would have gone there or somebody else with experience of doing this for 19 years in property and 14, 15 years in, service accommodation or guaranteed rent or rent to rent. Okay, guys. So the system that we put together is very sophisticated. And it enabled me to do most of the closing work and the nurturing of the relationship with the landlord on the phone. And then S goes to the property just to do the internal inspection. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, it really is that quick. This is all documented. You're going to see it in some of our videos, or you're going to see it online and in the members area, case studies. And maybe if we do some events in the future, which we're planning right now, then obviously S will be there and she'll walk you through how she did everything. Okay, guys? So that's literally 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, so S has her first deal. Okay, guys? Now, that one joint venture is just one joint venture, okay, guys? So there's 5 main joint venture partners I'm working with right now just on serviced accommodation. So I'm spending around 10% of my time right now working and managing the relationships and looking at the deals that these 5 joint venture partners are looking at and finding and sourcing and sending to me, getting my opinion, and I'm helping them and coaching and mentoring them and holding their hand through their first of many deals. Now, that's great for cash flow right now. So if you imagine if you entered into some of these joint ventures with some people that you know or you find at property events or networking groups, and they may have something you haven't, and you come together to form this partnership, it would take around about a month or so before any money starts to come in, of course. Now, that's obviously from when you've done your first deal. So there is more things to put in place first, but what I mean is when you've done your first deal or closed the first deal, signed the contract, the guest or the first guest checks in, it takes around about a month after that for you to see any money. Now, this is great cash flow. You don't need to put that much money in, especially if you have a joint venture partner and you're sharing half of the profits or half of the expenses or half of everything, which is a very good strategy right now. Now, I'm spending around 10% of my time focusing on joint ventures, and it's time intensive from the start to find the joint venture partners, put the work in, get the agreement set up and the contracts and forming of the company. But once it's done, I literally delegate around about 10% of my time looking at their deals, giving them advice, weekly webinars and weekly phone calls and WhatsApp groups and anything else that they need to help drive their business forward. Ultimately, they make money. My holding company makes money. So that's why I'm spending around about 10% of my time for that cash flow. Okay, guys? I hope you get some value from this episode. In the next episode, I'll be covering the last part of this series where I talk about another area which is generating revenue for my company. It can do the same for your company as well. And I'm spending around about 10% of my time in that particular element of property. Okay, guys? So I hope you got some value from this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts. My friend, if you're not already using arbitrage, what I mean by that is taking a rental property you don't have to be the owner of out of the AST rental market and putting it on Booking.com. You stand to lose out on the largest transfer of wealth that's happening right now in 2019. Because every £1,000 of AST rent is now worth up to £3,000 of rent on Booking.com. If you're not focusing all of your attention on Booking.com right now, you stand to lose. Now, you have a massive advantage over the other 2.5 million landlords that are also looking for these secrets. Don't waste that advantage by doing nothing after listening to this talk today. You can join our communities on social media called Ask Ryan OTTO to discuss these episodes and have your questions answered on the next show. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. I would love to hear from you and know what you liked about this talk.